How was your week?
Man, my week's been nice. Well, we had the launch of the podcast, so that's been exciting and more work than I really anticipated.
It really has been a lot of work.
I hope we can keep this going. I ain't got time for this.
I know.
But yeah, I play those fantasy football stuff, and so I do that one day FanDuel leagues. Basically gambling. But
I'm telling you.
Hey, but I won like $120 this week, so I'm like pumped.
That is awesome.
So I took $70 out, which I'll play and I'll put $10 in. It'll last me like a month of doing daily fantasy stuff, and so I took $70 out. So that's pretty much pays back everything that I put into it.
So what's your wife think of you doing?
She likes it. She always. We've always had league-long fantasy teams. We put money on that, pay like $25 for a season, and we do pretty good. My wife only cares as long as I have Aaron Rodgers on our team, then she don't care about anybody else. So first pick is always Aaron Rodgers in our draft.
Are you going to get a picture of or a tattoo of Aaron Rodgers on your arm for her?
I really hope not. It's tempting. Aaron Rodgers is a stud. So, we'll see. We'll see. We lost this week, so kind of down about that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so won some money. That's good. Launch of a podcast. That's great too.
Very hectic, but great. Finally, kind of relieved that it's going now.
Right. So now we kind of have to make sure we keep doing recordings.
Stay on top of the ball.
Andrew and I have been putting it off once in a while.
We have.
School and work, and
like last week was hectic, crazy for me in school.
Call of Duty just came out, so
oh yeah,
oops, kind of busy on that.
I kind of neglected some of my duties, podcast duties.
You said duty
twice.
We want to give a shout out to Real Life Podcast. They had us on their show last week.
If you guys haven't heard of the Real Life Podcast, go over there, check them out, subscribe to them, listen to a few others. You may want to skip the first few.
Kind of like our podcast in slow start, but they're hitting their stride now. They're just four guys usually, unless
talking about real life.
Unless somebody just doesn't want to show up, then there's three guys, and they just talk about what's going on in their life, try to bring some humor to their situations, and they're great friends of ours. So check them out, subscribe, rate, and review their podcast, but also make sure you subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. We would love one that helps people find us. So give us a nice little 5-star rating. Even if you're lying, we'll get better. We'll get to 5 stars, and then review it and let us know what we need to do different or what would make it a better experience for you. That would be amazing.
And since we know that you listened to all 3 podcasts last week,
yes, you binged podcasts,
right? Let us know what to change, where to improve, everything.
We're new at this, all right? So don't hate just yet. We don't know what we're doing.
Right. Give us a few more weeks, and then you can legitimately
We started this podcast as really a Bible book study, and it turned into let's record it. So we're kind of figuring out the recording part of it. Plus, we had to build a website and all that stuff that goes into just trying to get your thing on iTunes.
How is that website coming along, Dusty?
It's on now.
Oh.
So, I was to the final hour before I finally... I'll probably keep adding to it. I have a t-shirt company that I run, and we got a line of bad Christian tees. So we'll get them out there so you guys can check them out and buy them and support our show that way.
That would be great. So does that mean we're getting sponsored now?
Almost sponsorship. Maybe we can get a FanDuel sponsorship if I just keep winning, and I can just get on a commercial and.
There we go. We'll take that.
Sponsored by FanDuel, Christian podcast, sponsored by a gambling website.
They need some better publicity after that big story came out about their employee winning. So.
Well, yeah, the insider information, like they'd go to FanDuel people go to DraftKings and play, and DraftKings go to FanDuel.
Exactly.
And I mean, there is a possibility that it will all be shut down soon. So hopefully,
Exactly. So what better publicity than to sponsor a Christian podcast?
there we go. We should call somebody.
Gotcha. You can get all over that. I was going to say I would, and then I just thought about my upcoming weeks.
Oh,
You got this. I got finals coming up. Sorry.
Oh, that's lame.
I know. Trust me. Speaking of the upcoming weeks, we're going to try and have some guests on.
They are kind of like, you want to film me? What? so we're trying to explain this is a podcast. This is a legit thing.
And since when did we start filming?
I don't know. We could be periscoping or something.
We could, or that live Facebook thing.
Yeah, something. I mean, that's just one more thing, Andrew. We don't need to do it. Okay, so we want to record your vocals.
There we go.
Just your voice.
So, but we're going to try and have some other guests on here. Try and have the real life guys come over.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yep, they had us, so let's have them on our show.
Well, this week we are talking about pagan Christianity. We are in chapter 3 of pagan Christianity. We're talking about the Sunday morning worship service, encounter, experience, whatever your church calls it. We're looking at the structure of it and how it's all the same, and
right.
how it's kind of evolved over the years to be what it is today.
Right. I don't know how many churches I've gone to, but you always start out with music. You have a prayer. You do tithe and offering. You have more music. You may pray again, and then the pastor comes out. And then when he's done talking, somebody usually comes out. You may have another worship song. Well, why is it the same everywhere?
Or we might we'll flip the offering to the beginning,
Right.
But for the most part, it's the same.
It is.
So anyway, we're going to get into that, dive into that topic today. So we're going to play a little funky groove, and then we'll get started.
Steve, we already talked about kind of how every church in America does their order of worship already. The meetings of the early church, they were kind of marked by every member functioning spontaneously. They had the freedom to participate whenever they wanted to. It was very vibrant, open, participatory. It was a fluid gathering, not just a static ritual.
Right, where today, church, you kind of go in, and once you sit down in the auditorium or the sanctuary or the whatever you want to call it, you're basically facing forward. You have a limited participation in the service, and it's usually joining somebody else who's leading it. Well, the verse 1 Corinthians 14:26, 1 Corinthians 14, a lot of it talks about when you worship together, and there's a big section on the tongues, and we'll get to that at some point. But 26, it talks about, what shall we say then, brothers and sisters? When you come together, each of you has a hymn or a word of instruction, a revelation, a tongue, an interpretation. Everything must be done so that the church may be built up. And when I read that verse now, what I see is that each of us should do this thing.
Right.
And farther down, it talks about on verse 29, 2 or 3 prophets should speak, and others should weigh carefully on what is being said. And so what I feel like I'm reading here is that the way to worship is we're all together. We're all bringing our gifts. We're all bringing what the Lord has told us this week. And with these churches, they didn't meet just once a week. It was more of a fluid
throughout
gathering.
The week, multiple times, right?
You're right. So we're like, man, the Lord showed me this today, or the Lord did this for me today, and it was everybody kind of edifying the church and what God is doing, and then, but not like, hey, brother, will you bring a word next week? Will you preach the sermon next week? It wasn't that kind of thing. It was, hey, is anybody...
Right, it was spontaneous.
Is that the definition of spontaneous?
Yes.
I'm joking. But yeah, so, and then I really liked where it said the prophets should speak, and then we should weigh carefully on it. So there's almost like there's a discussion.
You don't take it for granted.
Yeah, there's almost like a discussion right at the same time. They speak, and then there's a discussion.
Could you imagine that? preacher up on stage giving his sermon, and we're like, wait. Could they have meant this?
Yeah, I think you're twisting that verse a little bit.
Yeah,
Pastor.
because back here in this verse, it says, that I think he'd get kicked out quicker than a youth pastor dating a student.
Oh my gosh, are you gonna say that like every episode, or are we just?
We'll
am I just
find
gonna
out.
have to try to start editing these podcasts myself so I can remove that?
We're going to have to find out.
Anyways,
so what we're trying to do here today is we're trying to find out, where did the Protestant order of worship come from? And early on in this chapter, we read, it's actually on page 51 if you're following along with us, that the order of worship has its basic roots in the medieval Catholic Mass. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today, and that's where we want to kick this talk off about.
And we're kind of skipping the boring parts of it. I mean, I say boring. I highlighted stuff on every page here.
So did I.
But there was it talks about how so you had the Catholic Mass set up in their order of worship, and then Luther came by and didn't agree with some of the things the way that the Mass was going, and so he came in and he made different changes, not back to the Acts model, but just changes in the which is now the Lutheran kind of model.
Right, and just kind of to tweak it to fit his own mold or his own flow of things.
Right, and so one of the things he did is he performed the Mass in a language that the people understood rather than in Latin. He gave the sermon he made the sermon the central piece of the meeting. He introduced the congregation singing, and he allowed the congregation to partake in the bread in the cup rather than just the priest being able to take the communion.
Break the bread.
Break the bread, yeah.
Because the Catholic Mass, the priest would break it, and then you would kneel at the altar, and then the priest would give it to you.
Right, and I mean, Luther talks much about the priesthood of the believers, where we're now all priests in his sight, and we all have access to Christ, but he never actually abandoned the ordained clergy aspect of the Catholic Church.
Right.
And so then you just kind of gives us a little thing of how the service looks with Luther, and then we jump over to Calvin, and he made a few adjustments. One was the collection of money being after the sermon. We kind of tip the pastor when he does a good job.
Right. All right, you did okay this week, so
Yeah.
I'll give you a little more than I did last week, or sorry, you stepped on my toes too much. I think that's kind of probably why we do it at the beginning of the service.
Right. So it's more of a you never know what you're going to get kind of given.
It's really now how popular is God.
But now it's not even that. Now it's like you can set up auto payment, and you can set up online giving. There's many types of ways you can give.
Well, that's so you can say you're a good Christian in your time.
And we'll talk about tithing and stuff. I have a
chapters.
question. I know that you're waiting for that one.
Yep, chapter 8.
But there's, just a short little thing I could throw out there right now. But auto paying, is that really is that really sacrificial giving?
We'll
if you don't even see that.
8.
If you don't even see it coming out of your bank account, I mean, that's really not what the tithe is meant. I don't think so. That's just come on.
Well,
What do they say? Come on, man. They say that on football.
They say a lot of things.
Come on, man.
Can you say this dude's name? Zwingli or
I actually skipped that part and went straight to Calvin because I couldn't say his name.
Exactly. Well, see, that's what I was going to say. I was like, I like how you skipped Zwingli. He's actually the one who kind of started the Reformation, the change in the Lord's Supper.
Right.
Because before, he changed it to being taken 4 times a year or being quarterly rather than every week. And so he kind of started that change, and Calvin just took it a little bit further.
Right. And then we jump over to the Puritan Reformation, or whatever you want to call it. The thing I liked most about them is they saw God's primary means of speaking to his people was in this service that they were in. And so they actually punished church members who didn't come on a Sunday morning. So if they failed to show up on Sunday morning, they were either fined or put in the stocks.
This dude's my role model. I like him.
But it's like, oh my gosh, just think if you were sick one Sunday or something, they're like, oh, we're going to fine you. And it's basically, we didn't get your tithes Sunday, so we're going to get it now through a fine.
That's right. And then we're going to humiliate you and put you in stocks.
Right.
Which now, I mean, what happens if we're not there? Somebody, sometimes a pastor, maybe an elder, or just somebody's going to send you a text. Hey, missed you today. Where were you?
Right. Well, that's not public humility, but you do get kind of like...
You get embarrassed.
Yeah. Like, I kind of come up with an excuse now to make it to where they understand why I wasn't there, not just because I was hungover last night.
Yeah. Or I just didn't want to be there.
Or I just didn't want to be there. Or I mean, the football game, I had one guy that before we had first service, second service, if his Chiefs played, and Brad, this is a shout out to you, but if your Chiefs played, then if they played at noon, he wouldn't come to church because he'd missed kickoff. Because the preacher was always more than 45 minutes, and it's just like, oh my gosh. And how'd that work out for you, Brad? Your Chiefs are still losing.
So a little confession, Dusty. Tuesday mornings, when I was working out regularly, but I always miss Tuesday mornings.
Oh, great.
It's because I was watching Monday Night Football and I stayed up too late.
Well, so was I, but I still got up at 5.
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Oh.
It's all because of fantasy football, dude. I got to watch it. So, I kind of understand Brad, not showing up because the pastor's going to go low. I know what you're going to miss, but it's still the Chiefs, dude.
Yeah. Get the Packers, then I understand.
Moving on. The next was the Methodist contributions, and they contributed quite a bit. I mean, they still act the same way. I would say Methodist and Pentecostal kind of still flow the same way. I was listening to it on my audiobook, so I really didn't get to underline it, so I can't find the section where I was talking about.
Oh, isn't that a shame?
But I think they're the ones who really started the choirs and
the music was really important.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the robes. But and then they're also the ones who started pragmatism, which you and I both wanted to talk about. Pragmatism is where the end justifies the means.
Right, and so it's kind of like if it's not broke, don't fix it mentality. It's if it works, let's do it. And what it ends up being is a lot of times it ends up we're depending on our own techniques rather than on God. And
right,
we've kind of stray away from relying on the Holy Spirit as much. We try to plan a good service and then hope that God shows up and does what he does best.
Rather than reacting upon God showing up.
Right, because
having a service that reacts upon God.
Have you ever been in a service, Andrew, where we're singing the songs and you can just feel the Spirit, Lord's just moving today, and the preacher wasn't able to preach a sermon because we just stayed in a time of prayer. Have you ever been in one of those kind of services?
Yes.
And when they say, afterwards you talk about, man, just the Spirit was in there today. It just, you could feel the preacher didn't get to preach a sermon.
But when those services happen the most? During your yearly revival. How come those services always happen during your revival?
What's a revival? I haven't had one of those in a long time.
I know, right?
But what I'm saying is, a lot of times people, man, the Spirit was really flowing today. But shouldn't that be how it always is? Should the Spirit
that
be
is
flowing?
How it should always be, yes.
And so we kind of lose that because we kind of make a program. And I think God blesses our work and he blesses those things. And he does show up in those times. But
I think he shows up when we allow him to show up.
Right.
I mean,
sometimes I think he shows up even when we don't want him to.
Yeah, but we ignore him at that point. It's
No,
like,
I
no,
mean,
God, it's not your time yet. Just get back in your box.
some of the worst sermons I've preached are some of the best results of when it comes to life change, and it's because I either one didn't prepare well enough, or and so I needed God, or two, I knew that I needed God, because I just am not confident speaking or whatever, and those are the times that people say, "Man, that was just a great word I just heard from the Lord today," and I'm like, "What?" I that was a 15-minute sermon I just gave. and
Let me tell you, with all your monologues, I would never know you're not confident with speaking.
I know, right? I'm more confident now than when I was back when I was a pastor, but
Back
because to
10
me,
years
like
ago.
I've really realized that it's not me. Like there's no amount of work that I can do to make it better. If God doesn't show up, it doesn't matter, and so I can just be real. I don't have to come up with the perfect taglines, and I can just talk about my experience, what God's been teaching me. It doesn't. I don't have to, like, if I stumble in my words, it's not embarrassing anymore, and it still is weird when people are like just staring at you while you talk. That I kind of don't like. And imagining I'm naked doesn't work either.
I've never done that imagining people naked thing. I've just always been a confident speaker, and public speaking is one of my favorite things to do.
So you don't need the Holy Spirit when you when you speak, Andrew?
No, I don't. Usually the times I'm speaking is not a church setting.
Oh, there you go.
And so I just... Anyways, I want to kind of go back to that pragmatism thing. This is one of the things where Dusty and I, we view the same thing differently, which kind of how, the early church was set up. When something was brought up, you may add another twist to it, or, did they mean it this way? So when I read this, how I saw pragmatism is kind of what everybody says now is we'll do anything short of sin to win those for Christ.
Right.
But even as this, if the end justifies the means, in my mind, maybe this was saying that how they believed is even if you sinned, if somebody came to Christ, it was okay. I mean, I don't believe that, but that's kind of what that is saying. The end justifies the means, so the end can, or the means, be anything.
And what was started here with the Methodist theology or whatever is the winning converts. So as long as somebody was getting saved, quote unquote saved, then it's okay. Then you did a good job. Let's keep doing it until nobody else gets saved, and we'll do something else. But and I've been on both sides of this because I've been in a church where it just frustrated me to no end. But people would be like, those if you give a terrible sermon or you give just a terrible service, and somebody comes up to you and goes, as long as just one person heard from the Lord today, it's totally worth it. And I just want to
I want to slap them.
I want to slap that grandma.
Right.
I know that
that
there's some excellence in planning it,
Yes.
but then now I'm on the other side where the whole freaking service is just a stupid thing and it's a show, and I'm like on the other side of it now. And so I'm like arguing with myself from 10 years ago to where...
Sorry, when you said it was a show, it just reminded me of Chuck E. Cheese.
What?
Because you used to go, you eat dinner, and then there were these people who'd get up on stage and perform a show.
You want to go to Chuck E. Cheese later?
No.
I'm sick of Chuck E. Cheese too.
Sorry. Go ahead.
But it's a show, and so now I'm just arguing with myself. I'm like on the other side of the argument now because, now I see like, golly, how much time and effort is spent on making everything excellent in a 1 hour service, and that's bothering me now because of stuff I've experienced, or the relationship side that I experience outside of church is more valuable, than the experience of going, because I'll go to like the big churches here, like Life Church or Church on the Move. I'll go to them and I'll have a great worship experience, but it doesn't mean life change. I might get convicted of something, put a little Band-Aid on an issue that I'm dealing with and I'm hurt in or whatever. But so you leave and you forget about it by the time you go to bed, or maybe the time you wake up, then most of that challenge is gone. There's nobody following up with me later, that I talked to and expressed my feelings with. I've just bottled it up inside. And so I don't know. I'm on the other side of the argument now as far as just the whole show side of it and how maybe we should rely on the Spirit more.
That's not a maybe. We definitely should.
And not use it as a cop-out of, just one person.
Now, talking about that old lady who was like, if you just reach one person, we can't really... I mean, yeah, we want to slap her because that's just your my reaction. But we kind of talked about this on the phone the other day. She's just using her gift of the Spirit, man. You can't punish somebody for using their gift of the Spirit of encouragement.
Well, I can't punish them now when I kind of agree with them. But at the same time, I don't think this is really the setting that we should be forcing people to show up to.
Right. And talk about it being a show. This was back... I mean, you were preaching back before, there were light shows and haze and all this.
Yeah.
You're kind of an old-timer.
I am 31.
Yeah, you're an old-timer. Because, I mean, you're preaching before all that stuff, and now think about how long it takes to prepare a weekly sermon with all that stuff.
Right. If you want to add, especially like a worship service, you want to add the right light cues. You want the movers. You need the haze. You got to plan all of that out. And yeah, I mean that's one of the things now that frustrates me is how much time is spent on that instead of investing in people actually. And we're investing in a service hoping to reach some people.
One person at least.
At least one person, then it's worth it.
Right.
but yeah, I don't know.
It's frustrating. I agree. That's kind of what led us to do this study, Dusty. So
right, and then so moving on, the next thing, Moody was the guy. He was all about the winning as many converts as possible.
Yeah, he did started door-to-door witnessing.
Right, the door-to-door is 1874. This is kind of his time period here, and it's one of those type of things where Jesus is going to come back, and so win as many people as possible before he returns. And
this is the guy I don't really like.
You don't like?
No, because he started hymnals.
Oh,
oh my goodness.
Just that. Speaking of hymnals, okay, so when we go to the order of worship, one of the things I don't know if you remember this, because we grew up in a Baptist church.
Southern Baptist,
and proud of it, Southern Baptist. And we'd always have the altar call.
Right.
Yes. Just as I am. But you would just continue singing that song until somebody.
Yep, anybody.
You couldn't just not have a response. So we'd be like, all right, Andrew, it's your turn. Go repent of something so we can go.
Yep. I'm like, no, I took it Wednesday night. It's somebody else's turn.
Andrew, you're more believable. you go. If I go, they're going to know I'm just showing.
I know. I mean,
I'm a perfect kid.
It was kind of like a Catholicism where we had to go to, I forget what did they call it? You go into the box and you talk to the priest.
The confession?
Confessional. Yeah, confession.
We never did that because that's not bad.
No, that's kind of what it was.
Yeah. You had to go down and pray, and then we're like,
yeah, you didn't necessarily have
what
to.
What did he do? Or she.
Right. I mean, we sang that song. It wasn't until somebody gave their life to Christ, because by that point, everybody in that church had already given their life to Christ.
We had no new guests coming in, guys.
Right. That was okay, this week I did this and this and this. Oh, you're forgiven. All right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
And then we would stop singing finally.
Finally. And you notice we always skip, verse 1, 2, and 4.
Yeah, we always skip verse 3.
Because most of the time the verse 3 is about the Holy Spirit.
Right, and we don't want it.
In the Baptists, we're like, ooh, this is a sensitive topic, and we'll just cut that Holy Spirit out of the service, out of the song.
Right, I was actually
I'm kind of glad, because I was like, dang, I can't do 4 verses. Oh, just 3, okay, it's bearable now.
Yeah, except for that last stanza or verse would just keep going on and on and on until somebody was like,
And then there was those people that would go down, and you're like, golly, can you do this on your own time? We got places to go.
I know. Because as soon as one person went up, it was a flood of people.
Jennifer, every week you are going down. Can you just, like, do this before the service is over? Like, why do you have to wait till after the sermon?
Right.
So
why didn't
selfish.
you do this on verse 1 of the hymnal?
So selfish. Trying to get right with God.
It's like you wait until the last sentence of the song, and then you walk down, and then of course he has to continue it while you're talking to the pastor, and so we're there even longer. So okay, so this whole chapter just really, if you want to know like more detail of what everybody did, you should get the book. I mean, we'll probably say this every week. It's a great read, and but the theme of this chapter is every denomination or every time period, they had many adjustments that they would make to a service, but really no vital change in the actual service. Right.
And we still are doing that today. I mean, like you just said, 10 years ago we didn't have the flashy lights and stuff. We had some, like, what are those called?
Maybe he had a little fog.
Those shop lights.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
those are so cool.
What are those? The halogen lights? Is that what they called?
Well, they're halogen lights now. Back then, they weren't halogen lights.
Yeah, they were really hot.
Shop lights. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we have that was our lighting,
and we were really cool and on the edge.
Yeah, and we had a djembe and an acoustic guitar is all you needed for worship, Right. And then now, like, we're continuing to make adjustments. We're continuing, like, if we make our music better, more people would want to come and listen to a boring sermon.
Yeah, let's add a xylophone now.
Yeah. And so, if we have a better speaker, more people will come. That's been a common theme still even today. We're trying to make minor adjustments that will really bring more people into our building. And I don't think that's going to be the answer. And I think that is actually, you can kind of see the change a little bit. People that especially that are involved in planning the services, the worship leaders are real, they're coming back to it's cool to have all these lights and stuff, but man, it's not.
I mean, we see it on the horizon, but I don't really see it, sweeping over the nation because it's working too well right now. Even in the mega churches, it's drawing.
And
a lot
really,
of
what the mega churches are is just they're doing this new thing that people like.
They're hip, right?
That are hip or that are new or that's exciting. It's nice to invite somebody to a concert with a nice word of speaking to, and
you said that. That's actually one of the reasons Disciple is one of my favorite bands, is because he would always kind of give a mini sermon at the end of his concerts, and I just loved that. And their music is amazing.
Do they still play?
I believe they released an album last year.
Huh.
It was really good. You should get it. So, unfortunately, neither the Catholics nor the Protestants were successful in changing the root of the service back to how it was. They made all these fine-tuned adjustments. And it's kind of what this chapter was over is, where it went from everybody was involved in the sermon or in the message or in the service.
Yeah.
To, one person is the central speaker. And everybody tried to put their own twist on it to how they thought it should be. But unfortunately, no one was able to get it back. I see that movement starting and happening. Matter of fact, Viola.
Frankie? Yeah.
Frankie, yeah, your buddy Frankie.
My boy? Yeah.
He talks about in the end of this chapter, and read the book, because this was one of my favorite parts of the chapter, was actually reading about this sermon or about this meeting that he went to. And it was just a bunch of people. They gathered together in someone's house. They rejoiced. They spontaneously prayed, exhorted one another. and then people were reading scripture and talking about what God did in their lives that week, and then somebody else would add to that. That's kind of what the early church was.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, they didn't have most of Paul's writings yet, unless he wrote them a letter to
Right.
Corinthians or whatever. But
right.
So yeah, it was kind of just where did you see God today? What did God speak to you today? What did He show you today?
Right.
But the book even says this: just because we are not doing it by the book, that church isn't being necessarily ran the way it was in Acts, doesn't mean that it's misguided. It doesn't mean that just because our church has kind of come from pagan backgrounds or pagan things doesn't necessarily mean that we are all pagan churches. One of the examples, the days of our week and the months in our calendar are named after pagan gods. Yet because my birthday is in October doesn't mean that now I'm a pagan person because I pay attention to the October calendar and I believe that my birthday is in October 14th. So, and my birthday is October 14th. So if you ever want to send me a present,
Dusty, your birthday's already passed by a month.
I know. So if you want to backdate that, belated present.
Well, my birthday is coming up.
And then you'll be as old as me, and then you can stop giving me the old jokes.
Yep, but for now I'm younger, so we're going to stick with it. So the authors, they also suggest that the Protestant order of service renders the congregation to be mostly passive. And a lot of people, including myself, find it to be boring anymore.
Well, but some of the bigger mega churches, they're making it not boring.
Well, they're trying to, but I'm even bored with that.
Yeah, I think if you listen to anybody talk for 40 minutes, you're going to get bored.
I know, okay, so this book...
Unless it's Aziz Ansari, and then, yeah, you're going to laugh the whole time.
Somewhere in this book, you were talking about it earlier, but it was saying, sermons last anywhere between 20 and 45 minutes, or 25 and 40 minutes. National average was 32 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's bull.
I want to find that 25-minute church.
I don't think that exists. I think that they're just trying to be nice.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Live Church, Craig Rochelle, what is he? He's about 25, 30 minutes, typically.
I don't know.
Their service is 1 hour long. So they have 17 minutes, I think, is the exact number of time they play songs.
And then they have prayer.
Prayer, offering, announcements. So I think it's right around 30 minutes.
Nice. Which I've always liked Live Church. Maybe it's because of that. I don't know.
It does help that he isn't a really good speaker.
He is a great communicator. Do you think it's possible that an open participatory church meeting provides some benefit to the Protestant order of worship? Or that the Protestant order of worship cannot?
I think yes, but I also think that it can be misused with like anything.
I agree.
And so we could just show up and hang out and play games. My house church would love that if we just showed up and played Xbox games all night.
That's not an open participatory
But
church
what I'm saying is if we met that way, then we're just kind of following the Spirit. Or what if the Spirit's leading us to have fun and play games, and we'll play games. But I do think that if you did it right...
if you don't abuse it.
If you don't abuse it, then I do think it'll help. I do think that just discussing the verses, and edifying each other, I think is important. It's nice to hear one person lay it on the line for you, and even sometimes, like at our house church, I kind of try to do that where I want them to kind of give me the answers, and I don't have like any answers.
Scripted answers.
Yeah,
right.
Scripted answers. But at the same time, it's like, what if we're wrong? It's nice to have somebody kind of...
Who knows a little more.
Yeah, who went to... Yeah, knows a little bit more, went to school for it or whatever, just to kind of help guide us. Because what if we all decide that Jesus is not right, but nobody's there to say, wait a minute.
Whoa, come back now.
Right. So...
I understand that, and I've often thought about that during house church. I've often thought, while we're talking, I'm like, is this really what it means, or are we just way off track?
Well, and I've heard people like give an answer, and one of the rules in our house church is taken from I can't remember what church that actually started it, but they we can't really correct somebody, which I correct.
I correct all the time.
Because you would have people. I think I was one house church where it was like, well, Muslim's pretty much the same as Christianity, and it was like, I can't let that go. I am sorry. But I didn't get mad. I was just like, well, no, here's the differences. Here's the major differences.
So this is odd. That happened in your house church, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, that didn't happen in my house church. But it was a friend's house church.
Yeah, that happened at my house church. But I didn't tell you that story.
Well, yeah, it wasn't you.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it my house church?
No.
Really? So that happened. That same conversation came up at two house churches. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, so those kind of things happen. Obviously, if it happened in two different house churches and two different people settings in there, then yeah. But
in my house church, I wasn't there, but it was still, they still set the record straight.
Right.
Probably better I wasn't there.
You'd have been like, listen, I've been to Afghanistan, I've seen Muslims, and that's not the same.
Right. It is nowhere near the same. Nowhere in our spiritual book, the Bible, does it tell us to go kill unbelievers. Sorry.
The Protestant order of worship is about 500 years old and has really undergone little change since its inception. Do you think that there's any value in experimenting with new forms of Christian worship in our day today?
Yes. I mean, I kind of think that we're already doing this. We're always experimenting and tweaking our services and trying to find new ways to reach unbelievers, and maybe not to make it so boring even for those who attend every week. I mean, yes, I think there is value in experimenting with it. I would love to go back to this open participatory style and try that out, actually.
Yeah, well, we can just go to China. I mean, that's pretty much it in China, is the house church open.
Or we could just do it here. I don't have the money to fly to China.
Where's Frank Viola's church? Let's just show up at his house one day.
Right.
Hey, Frankie, giving you a shout out here.
Frankie, we want to come to your house and do one of your open participatory meetings. Or you can come to my house. That's fine. We'll have you on the show.
Yeah. Do that too.
Let's wrap this up, Dusty.
Okay, so what did we learn? We learned that the church is constantly trying to make it more relevant to people. But we're making it more relevant on the service and not necessarily on
God.
Well, that's not what I was going to say. I wasn't going to say God, but it's not relevant as far as biblical, principles and ideas. What Jesus started. I mean, Jesus could have built a temple, but no, he didn't do that.
No, he was the temple.
He was the temple. And
we are called to be Christ-like, so therefore we are the temple.
Right, our body's the temple. My body is a temple. That's not even a song.
You can make... Hey, actually, talking about that.
Your body?
Well, your song that you were just making.
Oh.
That Frankie's house church or church meeting, it was talking about how a woman just made up a song and everybody started singing with her. I wanted to know this song that she made up. How did everybody know the words to it?
You know that Drake song, used to call me on my cell phone.
Sorry, I don't.
No? Oh. Anyways, I saw a video of this church that they basically rewrote it, I always call you when I need you. Lord, you always hear my prayer. It's like, oh my God. But they were really into it. People that post those videos, they don't realize we're kind of laughing at you. We don't think this is awesome. There's a video of a drummer that plays that song Oceans by Hillsong.
Oh yeah.
And it's like I think if you type in YouTube like best drummer Oceans or something like that, it'll pop up, and it's like, really soft and then you got this guy come in with the drums on the electric drum set. It's like, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is. He probably posted that because I mean that is he probably thought, man, this is really awesome, and then or somebody from the sound booth posted it because they were just so annoyed with the drummer. One of those two things happened. That's way off topic.
Just little. All right, so next week it's the sermon.
The sermon.
We get to finally talk about the sermon and kind of how it came about, how it was structured, and who. So tune in. Hope you enjoy. Have a good week, guys.
Two bros in the Bible Belt.